Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is episode number 49. We are now almost 2 years old. Thank you to those that have been tuning in on a regular basis since our first episode in February of 2021. As you know, we like to virtually travel around the UK, and sometimes we go overseas as well to chat to devotees, to find out about their background, their stories, their interests, their projects, because everyone has a story to tell. And it's been really genuinely a wonderful experience for me to meet so many devotees in this way over the last 2 years. And this week's guest actually has a really important role in the UK in terms of the devotee community, but I'm going to allow her to explain that a bit later on. I'm really, really pleased to welcome Ina as our guest this week on the podcast. Hare Krishna, Ina.
Hare Krishna, devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Really, really grateful to you for joining us this week. Let's just start, maybe before we reveal what you do, what your role is in ISKCON in the UK, let's just start by you telling us where you're from and kind of what your background is.
I'm from Estonia originally. I came here to UK about 23 years ago. I was only 17, so I had lots of interesting experience in London. Built a bit of a career. I used to work for luxury retail mainly, and my final role was in Prada, HR officer, which I'd done about 5 years. And then I had my daughter nearly 6 years ago, and that's when I sort of came across devotees, and well, I started my search after her birth, which I'm sort of trying to, change. Well, I thought, what can I teach her? And I understood that I can't teach her anything that I'm not myself. So I firstly need to become like a better person if I want her to be her best self as well. And that sort of philosophy led me to Hare Krishna movement. And but also a long time ago, I used to work on Oxford Street. So maybe 22 years ago, 21 years ago, a couple of years after, right? No, even, 22, nearly 23, on Oxford Street, right opposite of the temple. So I did hear the holy name and saw devotees. Didn't take anything serious then, but maybe the little seed was planted then, even, and it took a while. So yeah, it took about 17 years or something for it to sort of sprout into some real interest where, but I think, philosophy really brought me to the roots, because I heard some lectures using like reference to Vedas, and everything that I heard based on Veda knowledge, books, the philosophy really resonanced and felt like, wow, this is really really important subject. It's not just some sort of philosophy, like nowadays, without any depth, or very like shallow and ego based. So then I started to dig deeper. Where did they get information? There are many sort of Russian speaking devotees that do philosophy lectures and everything, and they do it for mass, so they don't really say Krishna is a god, but they say, get back, get in touch with the universe, with God. And so it could really be suitable for any religion. But then I wanted to know more, and I came to find out that it's actually that comes from Vedas, which is sort of like comes from India, but it's universal. It's not that. And then and the search brought me to so about 6 years ago, and but my daughter was very small, so it was very difficult for me to participate like fully. So we'd come to temple, but with a small child, it wasn't that easy. But now she's 6, so I started to be a bit more involved, which is I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, I was praying to Radha-Krishna for service, and they granted me some service, which I'm trying to.
I find that actually really encouraging that one of the things that kind of encouraged you 6 years ago to kind of make more of a connection with the devotees and Krishna consciousness was having a child. I find that really encouraging. I met a Christian man once, and I asked him, "Oh, why did you start coming to church?" He said, "Well, I had a son, and I wanted the son to understand about morals and values." And I thought, "Wow, I never heard that before." Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm just quite encouraged to hear that you had a child and you wanted her to learn about spiritual life.
Well, I wanted her to just be a better person than I was. I wasn't really thinking about spirituality then. I just thought, oh, I need to be just a better person, with better morals and values. As I say, growing up in London, having allowed and things like that, there's just not much, especially in like luxury retail and things like that. There's not much sort of, values and morals as such. But yeah, so not in a bad way. I mean, there's nothing bad going on, but generally people are very money orientated, very career driven, and there's no service. There's no such thing as actually serving someone or anything like that at all. But yeah, so I thought that I want her to be just a better person with better values. And I thought, oh, well, she wouldn't be able to learn anything, even if I bring her books or I'll just read it. But if I am not like that inside, then nothing will happen. So I have to start changing. And then with that idea of changing for better, then spirituality did come actually, because they're really hand in hand. You cannot become a better person if you, for example, atheist, or you can become like on the surface better person and be atheist, but yeah, you have to believe in something greater than yourself to truly be a better person.
Yeah, I agree. So Ina, you've been I think we're going to get you to talk about it a lot because there's not a lot. There's something I know little about, but for almost a year you've been in the UK, the ISKCON UK Ukraine crisis coordinator, which, as people will understand, it's a really, really important role. And I've just realized today, as getting ready for this podcast, it's almost a year now, I think, since the war started. I think it was February last year. So you're the ISKCON UK Ukraine crisis coordinator. Tell us a bit about that. How long you've been doing the role, why you took the role up, and why it's important for you to do that role.
Yeah, so I think started February, around end of February, like 23rd or something. The attack, the first attack, and I think sort of by March we started to realize that this is very serious, like everywhere in the world, and ISKCON started to react and see that we want to get devotees to safety because there's a serious issue going on there, and the flood of people started moving towards Poland and all the border countries, and so the temple started to like overflood with devotees seeking shelter and saying that the city is under attack and things like that. And then ISKCON European office and GBCs of Europe, they created a special committee, like a crisis management committee, and each European country, there was a representative from temple to represent the region or the area, and we would do weekly meetings and then speak with each other, express what's happening in each of the countries, and the situation we're facing and the problems, and Sukanti Radha Mataji, she was in charge of all of these regions, so she was managing everything, and Pragosh Prabhu was, chairman for this committee. And I literally, I think, early March, sent a few emails to ISKCON leaders in UK and sort of like head people that I knew, like temple presidents, and introduced myself and offered some service because I speak Russian, and also coming to UK 23 years ago, I faced certain problems that I thought people would be facing arriving, sort of coming from Eastern European country without much experience, living in a metropolis and things like that. So, and also working in HR here, and have some dealings with the council, local councils, and just day-to-day life. I'll be able to bring it, put it across to them in the way they can understand what is going on, how to act, because it's a different world here to what they used to. So I literally, put myself forward for this service, and became part of the team. And we then, obviously, UK never had the same severity of situation as was in Europe. For example, in Polish temples, they had up to 1,000 devotees, where capacities only could be a couple hundred maximum, just the small places. Yeah, people were sleeping, like Ukrainian devotees were sleeping on the floor in altars, like an altar room. And as before, you would, like temple president would say, or just please be very careful and clean floor after you take prasadam, or all this. But now people were sleeping literally like that, like very tightly next to each other in all the rooms, because I was keeping different standards, and it was just unbelievable to hear what they had to go through. There were actually tents, they were buying tents, and I mean, when the spring came, be warmer, because it's also very cold there in the winter, so they couldn't just allow people to be outside. But when the warmer weather came, devotees were sleeping in the tents outside of the temples, because temples couldn't fit any more people. And we were discussing, okay, we need to buy tents and whatnot. And I mean, prasadam was all big issue, because temples just couldn't cope. They didn't have Lakshmi to facilitate all that. And all these people came with nothing. They didn't even have simple, hygiene items, and had to facilitate all that. Prakash Prabhu and Sukanti Radha Mataji worked really hard on fundraising for that, and there were appeals, and there were different programs, and from UK there were different sort of fundraising like appeals happening, and lots of money was sent to Europe, because in Europe people could freely go around and move, and there was lots of movement happening. And then it was up to each country's government to provide proper support. But UK put this barrier of enter. So we were actually, when lots of people were already like the coordinators of other countries, they were facing this overcrowding of temples and asking how to cope with it. But we're here in UK. I was just sitting on standby, thinking like, yes, when we're gonna get the first people, I want to look after them, I want to sort of offer them some support, because there were lots of people came forward saying, so we did appeal here in UK as well, for devotees to offer their houses for Ukrainian devotees. So for example, if they have a spare bedroom, or even a living room, if it's not like open plan living room, government would also allow to invite someone to stay there. So we were appealing for devotees with the possibilities like that to welcome someone. And I had an email, and people were contacting me, and I was making a list of devotees in UK. And then I had a list of devotees in Europe wanted to come to Britain, because for one reason or the other, they couldn't stay in Europe where they were temporarily, because they could understand it could be several years of the situation. And then if they are currently in a temple where there are 1,000 people, they have to move on somewhere. So if their families, if they have children, or for example, they were fluent in English, it was reasonable for them to try to come to UK. Then they can find a job, they can sort of settle here for a few years, or whatever the future plan would be. But for many people, several families, say about 20 families were matched and now still happily living together. For example, Karuna Bhavan in Scotland, they've taken a lot of people. There's a big community there now, about 40 plus devotees, Ukrainian devotees living in Karuna Bhavan.
Wow.
Yeah. Within actual temple, and then just outside, the devotees welcomed many families. There are several families around Mana, taken some families. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? because I've never been to Ukraine. In terms of before February last year, and I guess this question also applies to now. How big is the devotee community in Ukraine? How many temples are there? I mean,
yeah, my understanding is it's large. It's they say in Kiev. As I said, I'm from Estonia originally, but my family is partially from Ukraine and partially from Russia. I've been to them only a couple of times to that block, so I'm not totally familiar. Not, you know, it's not something I know really well. But from now speaking to Ukrainian devotees like on daily basis, yeah, they tell me that in Kiev Temple on a Sunday program there was 10,000 people. That's like average.
wow.
Yeah, the temple is 3-4 stories high. I think the deities were installed about 40 years ago. Something quite. I was like, are you sure? Because Radha-Krishna, I mean, 53 years or something. So it's very, they're very close. You know, in terms of years that the movement been around.
So can I ask a question in terms of, and I think you might have just answered this, I might have just missed the answer, but in terms of the number of devotees coming from Ukraine to the UK, how many have now fled Ukraine and arrived here over the last 12 months?
Well, it's difficult for me to say because I don't, unless the people contacted me, then I have the figures, but there are some of them on their own. Just doing that. And then, because sometimes for example, I go often to Radha-Krishna Temple, Soho, Radha-Krishna Temple, and I can just meet there. I just regularly meet a Ukrainian couple or Matajus or Prabhu that arrived. And but there is a group, there is a Telegram group that I created probably March, April time, are called like Arrival to UK for ISKCON devotees. And there's around 150, 160 people there now.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're sharing this group like a like entry, so they're adding themselves, and there's a so I was very actively putting all the info there about the arrival, what is the, you know, what are the rules, what do they need, what would they find when they arrive, how can, you know, if there isn't a host for them, devotee host, what can they do to find like a karmi host, or perhaps look at a vegetarian website. And there were lots of, in UK, there were lots of websites just for that, where we're connecting people. So all the just a random family could just put the details there, and then Ukrainian refugee can go there, meet, and then maybe have several and then fill out this visa. Yeah, in Europe, the situation in Europe and UK was that no one could arrive unless they have a visa. But to get a visa, they should have this host family that will host them. But it wasn't much. I mean, if someone wants to host someone, it's not a lot of responsibility because they're financially independent as such. So there's no sort of financial support that hosts should offer. They just literally should offer a space for 6 months. This is what government guideline was. That if you're able to offer a separate room for 6 months, that's really the only criteria. And you should be like a British citizen or have like a permanent some sort of residency, not like if you're on some holiday visa, you can't invite someone. You should have even it could be rented place. It doesn't have to, you don't have to own your own house. You could live in a rented accommodation, and if you just have it. So they, even if you, for example, house owner, but you're not supposed to have like a long-term visitors or sublet it, let's say, due to your mortgage criteria. But they were saying that they weigh all that there would be no issues, like council would not ever raise any issues, and like insurance will not, if they have an Ukrainian refugee staying in. So that will not be an issue at all. It's all like outside of the rules as such.
So
Where did we
around,
start?
yeah, so we were talking about the number of devotees that have come over from Ukraine. So I'm really impressed that firstly that around 40 devotees are around the kind of Karunabhavan area. I've been to Karunabhavan many times over the last decade, and it's a great community in terms of its geographical layout. There's a lovely kind of farm environment, eco farm, and I do really love to visit. And I couldn't think of a better place for kind of a settling community to settle, or even for a temporary period of time. So that's really good. So we've got Karunabhava and a lot of devotees there. There's some devotees around the manor area as well. How well do you know have the Ukrainian devotees settled into the UK? How have they been received by the British community?
Well, they've been received really well. I think really welcome, but at the same time, they are used to. Their feedback is that they're used to. They're different, you know. To them, the environment is a little bit cold, not temperature wise, and that is also. But their winters are really harsh. But I mean, it's like a personal warmth. They're really much more open people. For them now, many people contact me and saying, "Oh, for example, I am living in Scotland or Ireland, something, and I'd like to visit London. Can you please find me someone to stay with?" And I was like, there isn't anyone you can stay with, because you either need to know them personally. I cannot just approach someone that I don't even know for them to take someone I don't know who is coming. But for them, it's normal. They're saying, "Oh, well, in Ukraine, that was always fine. Devotees always invited each other, and you know, you can just travel and just anyone in temple, you can just like call up and they will just find. I say, oh yeah, go to this one. They will always take someone. They're used to that. And they're saying it's very not impersonal, but it's a different environment and it's different culture in here, you know, because although, you know, like we devotees, and I'm not saying like I'm not British, but I've been here 23 years, which is quite long. I understand the culture, that you're not really that, you know, at the same time, lots of people taking refugees, but it's the ones who wanted to do it, they sort of done it. And then now just to find quickly someone who will take them for the weekend is almost impossible. So it's a difference in culture, and I think they are staying with devotees, but they're saying, for example, even the style of cooking is different. If they're staying with the Indian devotees, then you know, like they'll use the spices in different ways. So they're saying long term it's difficult. So there are issues, but nothing that resolve. But there is, we have to admit, there is a difference in culture.
So
but I think still they're very grateful. They're still at the same time they're saying they can't believe that the strangers have taken so many people in. It's like, I mean, I'd say so 140 people, definitely half of them are in UK from that group, and half of them are either meditating to come or searching, or maybe even, you know, maybe even 100 already here from this particular group. Yeah, it's incredible that they never knew each other before, and they're still living. But in some cases, so they stayed 6 months with the host and they moved on. They went on renting some, you know, or they approached council. If they couldn't find something, then the council would help them, especially if it's like a single mother with a child, or then the council will help them if they didn't find a job. Some of them stay longer than 6 months, for example, and it becomes a little bit difficult. But then they're going to find a job and they're contributing towards the rent. And then that's no issue at all. So the hosts are really happy. They've got everything covered in that sense. So there, you know, each situation is unique in a sense, and there are, you know, many. There was one or two slightly sort of unusual situations, but they've been resolved. And
so the expression that kind of springs to mind, you were talking about British people and their emotions or lack of emotion. The expression that springs to mind is stiff upper lip. Which literally means that the British people have a stiff upper lip, so they don't show emotions in public. I think not all Brits, but a lot of Brits don't show emotions in public. Don't really like to share things with other people. They're very private people, you know, and that might have been something that the Ukrainian devotees might have struggled with, you know. And of course, generally, most of the time, the Hare Krishna movement is quite based on emotion and our sense, you know, kind of senses and stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of experience for everybody. So you've talked a bit about your role over the last year in terms of supporting Ukrainian devotees, trying to match up Ukrainian devotees with British devotees in terms of staying in their homes. What kind of support, extra support do you need? Because obviously we're almost a year now into this crisis. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing down or ceasing anytime soon. So tell us a bit about your role and what support or you might need help with from the UK Yatra.
Well, the main issue is still that there are still people who wanted to come to UK, devotees, and they find it even difficult to find their own ways, even karmis, but of course they want a vegetarian household and things like that. So if we can raise some awareness that there's still very nice devotees, families, and just single mothers and single ladies, Matajis still looking to come, and if they can, for example, contact me with their details, and I'll keep the details. I have a list of people who want to come, and we can. What I usually do is create like a three-way call, meet each other. I usually discuss do consultation with one party, and then the other party find out what the preferences, whether they suitable for each other, whether what is the understanding. For example, one person really likes to be for example, a very quiet person and just want to stay in a room and doesn't want to be part of the family. And then I know that's sort of the family I need to look for them, someone who is really happy for the person to be independent and then just stay sort of doing their own thing. And then there are other families who I've spoken to who wish to take in someone and said, oh, we really want someone to be part of the family, maybe like a young lady who just wants to cook dinners together with the with family and participate. So then I know that I need to be looking for a person who also has the same sort of idea, just for them to match better. So then when I feel that maybe they have some, they might have something in common, then we do like a three-way call and discuss things, and then basically they start the process. And the process of visa application is very, very simple. From the host, they just needed some details like address, name, status in UK, not more than that. And then from the other side, they literally sort of go into the same application and add their own details. And then usually within, from few days to a couple of weeks, they receive the answer. And it's always been yes, from my experience, they always receive the visa. And then they can make enter UK at any point within whatever, several months. So that ideally, if there's anyone out there, anywhere in Britain, because of course, many devotees, Ukrainian devotees, they like to be in London because they like to be part of Russian-speaking Yatra, and we have a quite large Russian-speaking Yatra now, especially with lots, I think more than half now Ukrainian devotees, and we have about 40-50 people averagely coming to our meetings. And we do different programs, and we invite Maharajas and translate to Russian and sort of like tweak to the, to the needs, different sort of programs that we do. And we also have now a cafe, which is a vegetarian cafe near Liverpool Street Station, where Ukrainian refugees, devotees work. And it's Parashuram Prabhu's sort of initiative, because he provided that space sort of free of charge, and he's providing us boga. So we like sort of like a minimum expense, and then trying to maximize taking and also the actual use of the space. We do programs there, like Sunday programs for Russian-speaking devotees and Ukrainian devotees. We did like a musical event, like a concert with the Jake and Sam. So they did amazing little concert there, and we do like Indian dance classes, and we're starting now Bhagavad Gita classes on Sundays with the Ukrainian Prabhu, who was part of Kiev. In Kiev, they had like a university, like a spiritual university, where they studied all the subjects. That there were many different faculties, and So they're starting similar project here. So we basically in that cafe, it's called New Beginning Cafe. We're facilitating many projects like that. And if anyone is out there wishing to do something similar or just use the space or hire the space, because everything that we make there on prasad, when we sell prasad or when we hire out the space, it goes towards the project to support Ukrainian refugees, devotees. And eventually I thought if it works really well, we can start renting accommodation for them, so then more families can come and they can participate in the project, and then maybe in the future we can actually build a community, like a rural community like Srila Prabhupada wanted. And Ukrainian devotees, they're very hands-on. Some of the Prabhus, they can build a house, they can do plumbing, everything. So it could be really self-contained, and they're really amazing devotees, and they have lots of experience like that. And some of them do come from rural communities themselves, so they could just easily know exactly what's going on there. So ideally we can start fundraising to then move maybe just outside of London somewhere. We can, as Srila Prabhupada wanted, come into London for preaching or some work, and then have our children grow just outside in our own community. We can invest as well and have some accommodation, because the problem, as I mentioned, lots of people do want to come to London, to see the deities, to be involved in some festivals, but they find difficult to stay anywhere. No one can afford. London is ridiculously expensive, and even not Ukrainian devotees, not many other devotees can afford to travel and stay. And apart from in Manor, like some guest houses, there's nowhere for them to stay. So having like some sort of like eco farm would be great, something closer to London, because there is something up north, but it's not somewhere you can travel a couple of hours just to be in a festival and then go there. But so our long-term plans ideally.
So in terms of the New Beginnings Cafe or New Beginning Cafe, is it open every day of the week? It's like a mainstream cafe. People can buy a meal, buy something to eat, can they?
Yes. So it's right next to Liverpool Street Station. It's literally 5 minutes around the corner from Liverpool Street Station. It's in the number 112 Houndsditch. We are open for lunch. At the moment, it's lunchtime only, from around 11:30 until 3 o'clock. It's just the busiest time.
Yeah.
We were open for like full day, but we noticed there's not much interest in the morning and not much interest after a busy sort of lunchtime. Maybe in the future we can extend the hours, because I'm trying to pay at least £10 an hour to Ukrainian devotees who work there, or they take whatever make that day. Obviously the longer hours, the longer we have to pay, and there's nothing comes in after 3, unless we do an event and we sell tickets, so we can happily do that as well. And it's open to anyone. Yes, we mainly actually have customers from the around area, like business people, office people. They come and buy the lunch. It's eat in or take away. So there's a nice simple facilities inside to eat. Up to 20-30 people can easily facilitate. We don't get that busy yet. Get few people coming in. Some people getting takeaway. So everything's prasad, everything's offered, everything's free of onion, garlic, no caffeine. So we do decaf, and that's why in the morning we're not that popular, because people they do come in and then they walk out, but then they come back to buy lunch. So they say no, we'll grab a coffee elsewhere, which is fine. Yeah. So we offer decaf, herbal teas and prasad. We sort of the menu at the moment is whatever's most popular there. We do soup bar, so we do several types of soups. We do pasta and some vegetarian sauce to go with the pasta. We do hot wraps, sandwiches, salads, some simple things like that. That's sort of popular at the moment. Yeah, sort of seasonal veg and some we bake a lot as well, like different like apple pies and muffins and things like that. Yeah.
It sounds really encouraging. So I was aware of the New Beginning Cafe. I have seen it on social media, but I didn't know you were doing so much. The fact that people can hire the space and they can buy a meal, and there's lots of classes and talks going on. I think it's really, really inspiring. And I've seen a lot of projects start up in the past, and then for different reasons they kind of maybe fall to the side. But I really do hope that this one works out. It's not just for the Ukrainian devotees, for anyone who wants to come and experience prasadam. You know, prasadam's wonderful. I was a lot thinner before I joined the Hare Krishna movement, and then you encounter prasadam, and it's a wonderful thing. And it's great that there's so many people involved. I mean, I was aware that the Russian-speaking community, devotee community, was big, but I mean, how many is it in terms of the Russian-speaking devotee community in the UK, would you say?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, Bhaktivigyana Goswami was in London, and we organized a program, and there was about 25 of his his disciples that we did a special program in the cafe. It was like a closed door program just for disciples, so about 25. And then we also did open program for anyone to join a few days later, and we had about 150 people.
Wow.
But not all of them were Russian speakers. There were some English speakers because we translated. No, actually, Maharaj spoke English and we translated in Russian. So I'll say maybe 30 were English speakers, but yeah. So 120, maybe, definitely around 100. But not all of them participate in Yatra life, like every Sunday. We meet nearly every Sunday. Every second Sunday, we cook, as a Russian-speaking Yatra, we cook Sunday feast in Sri Radha-Krishna Temple. So anyone can come and join. And then other Sundays, we meet in the cafe and we do different programs as well. But I think averagely about 30 people come. And then, really, because some have to travel and, travel in London. And there is some living around Mana and they find it difficult to come. Hours journey, it's cost a lot of Lakshmi for family, for example, if it's family of 4, all of them to come, it's quite costly. So not everybody can come, but for a big program, so having around like these big numbers. We had the Jarashanta Maharaj at summertime. We organized a program for him because he has lots of Ukrainian disciples who are here now, and it was very successful. It was a cooking class. We actually used Studio 108. Sri Radha London Temple allowed us to use the Studio 108 for this purpose, and it was really great. And now actually we're starting to prepare to welcome Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj coming on 27th June, and he'll be in London until 7 July. So he'll be splitting his visit between Soho Temple and Mana. Sort of like 5 days there and 5 days there, and he'll be doing some lectures in the Soho Temple, and we'll be probably having 1 or 2 programs, either in a cafe or Studio 108, perhaps, because actually the cafe is only with us until summertime, until about June, because the space is given to us for free, and things are never really.
So what will happen after that?
in this
Nothing, everything's temporary. But what's going to happen after June? Are you going to lose the cafe or try and find another venue somewhere else?
We're going to try to find something else. Hopefully by Krishna's mercy, he has a plan and we can just move somewhere. Because with Parshuram Prabhu, he gets these different offers coming through from other bankers and people who like to sponsor. So something might come along, hopefully, then, and we wouldn't have to sort of close this project or temporarily sort of pause it. Hopefully we can just move across to another place and carry on, because I think by then we'll have quite a lot of action there, which is great. The little sort of like hub. It's more a bit, temple is great, but temple is quite formal. But these things are more informal. We even have some equipment there, sort of like donated. And we were thinking to do screening of Srila Prabhupada movies with the projector and get like a sangha there, and then have some prasadam afterwards, discussion. Maybe for young devotees, we can do like sort of young programs or different like family events and things like that. It's very open. I mean, I sort of run it by myself, so I don't have that much sort of, you know, Shakti to just spread everywhere, but I'm offering other people to come and sort of realize their ideas, and we can facilitate this and that, and we have prasad, we can cook for them, so we can sell tickets, whatever they want, I can facilitate, but I can't sort of manage all these different ideas, because I'm quite sort of stretched already.
And I think that sometimes, I mean, I've certainly done that in the past, and I still sometimes do that now, that we want to do all these things for Prabhupada, and we want to kind of, you know, have that missionary spirit and go out and change the world and make a difference, but ultimately we're human beings in these material bodies, and we get tired, you know, and we have to kind of pace ourselves, because ultimately, you know, we should use these bodies for service, but you have to look after your body at the same time. And I've been so guilty of not looking after my body over the years, and trying to sleep less, you know, and just kind of go out there all the time. Can I ask a question about kind of, again, more broadly about the Ukrainian devotee community in the UK? Do you think, or do you feel that, you know, once the war is over, and we hope that soon, is there then a desire for a lot of Ukrainian devotees to go back to Ukraine?
Well, my understanding is, because I do speak to them about this subject, and it's sort of 50-50. Yeah, some people do want to return and some don't, for different reasons. So feedback sometimes is that they understand that it's still going to be about 20 years for the country to come to any sort of reasonable state economically, and they don't want to waste their time. You know, they want to serve Prabhupada and you know, grow and without all this that will imply being there. So they just find a new life here. They want to build a new life and just carry on the service, because there's, I mean, there's a lot of nationalism. So if you want to go back, then you'd have to, you know, next 10 years have a lot of austerity, and then with that sort of austerity, you know, it would be really difficult to practice your sadhana and things like that, because if it's simply like now, there is no electricity, it's difficult. For Prabhu, it's probably not that difficult, but some Matajis, they're really struggling now, raising families, things like that. But there are a lot of people still there. For example, Purushram Prabhu, he just went to Ukraine. He just returned. He's been there 2 weeks, from sort of Christmas time up to after nearly 2.5, and they returned after New Year. And they went to 4 or 5 major cities. They were welcomed really, really warmly. They were fed, although they brought a lot of boga, but people are still managing, they're surviving, they're finding things, so they're not in total sort of hunger. But we don't know what the next year going to be like, because the current the sort of farming is really suffering. So they were finishing what they had from previous years, but this year there was no farming, no collection of you know, like grains or whatnot. So next year going to be really difficult. So, and then the year after, I don't even know. And but if you like devotees, then it doesn't really matter where you're from. You're there, and you preach there, and you serve there where you are, and then you find lotus feet of Krishna there. But everybody's different, you know. For some people, it really matters to be closer to the family. They can serve better like that. But yeah, as I say, generally it's 50-50. Some, you know, people do wish to stay here, and my understanding is that sort of their visa is for 3 years. So when they're arriving, they're receiving these documents when they're doing with the host. So they're receiving 3-year visa. And it's interesting that different people obviously arriving at different time, but they have this BRP document, which is like a plastic sort of ID card that gives their status, sort of confirms their status. They can carry with them if they're looking for a job, or for different like government like officials that sort of confirms their identity. And this card runs out at the same date, I think, like end of 2024. Yeah. And it says that you still have your 3 years allowance to stay in Britain. It's just, I think from that day, there will be maybe different format, not this plastic card anymore or something. Well, I'm thinking that perhaps they will be granted a permanent residency.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like when it was Brexit, all the Europeans who were in Britain then already living few years, they just needed to show that they've been working, that they've been paying tax, and they've been like good citizens as such, didn't have any like criminal record or something like this, and they were allowed just to stay here. So I'm thinking Ukrainians will be allowed to do similar thing, because British government is very kind in that sense. They wouldn't really like sort of send people away if they have nowhere to go back to. So say, well, my house is just blown up, or how can I return? Unless they really want to, obviously they always have, they can return, but if they already build their life here. So I'm thinking there is opportunity long term for them to stay here and rebuild their life and just do something, positive with them, their life, and, in the movement as such.
That's encouraging to know. What we're going to do, Ina, is when this podcast is broadcast or published, I'll put a link to all the different kind of things that people need to know about. So we'll talk about I'll write about the New Beginning Cafe. We'll put something about how people can get in touch with you and reference if they want to be a host, because it's kind of an ongoing thing, isn't it? And what in terms of kind of mainstream society, kind of everyday life, just because we don't see things on the news, it doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's kind of my slight fear now with the public in general, not just devotees, the public in general, because in some news channels or some news broadcasts are not talking about Ukraine every day. Now people are thinking, well, maybe it's not such an issue anymore. People become complacent. Just because we're almost a year into this, we should definitely not become complacent. So it's the work you're doing is very important. It's extremely important, and we can definitely, through this podcast, promote that. We need more hosts. The ISKCON community in the UK is around 8,000 from research that has been done. A lot of them are in London. Of those 8,000, a lot of them are the Indian community around Bhaktivedanta Manor. But there are lots of devotees scattered around the UK that I know that can provide a home for a Ukrainian family. So hopefully through this podcast, through this broadcast, we can promote that service that you're doing.
And they should keep in mind that they will receive like a financial contribution from the government. They're paying £350 per month for each family, like for each address. So if someone has one address, it's not like per person. So if you're having one person or a family, still have 350. But if someone has another address, they can facilitate family there, then they can register that as well. And I heard that from this year, they're actually putting up to 500 a month, but I have to check that. But yeah, or because the electricity is rising and yeah.
I know.
Some people remotely, someone stay, in the Midlands somewhere, that is really good sort of income as such. If they want to able to rent the place out, and they get one or two like Ukrainians living, then they still get 300 or 500 there per month. And obviously for London is not really great rent. It just will cover the bills, but obviously there's always the subject of kindness or some sort of arrangement they can work out later on with the person as well. Or 6 months is not really that long time, just allow someone to stay, then the person can move on. So that's quite important subject. And this actual Ukrainian refugees, they receive, if they're not able to work straight away, they receive job seeker allowance, which is about £350 a month. So they have their own income, so they won't be dependent. So the host doesn't need to think that I have to provide everything for them. They're quite self-sufficient. And then lots of them, usually they're studying English. First few months they go in the government and like the local council or this universal credit benefit service. They offer them free of charge English lessons. And they usually just take that on for a few months, and then they go and they really want to work. They're not I don't know many who just happy sitting and doing nothing. They're really active, and they sing this because they actually never earn that much money salary wise. Like in England, is very high salary compared to there. They're thinking, oh, I want to take this opportunity, and then go on. Some ladies don't mind doing some cleaning job or working in retail because they don't want to touch unsanctified products. But like a clothes shop, I know a couple of Ukrainian ladies that just work in a sort of like ladies' clothes shops, and they're earning good money and all this sort of thing, or like child minding, and they have experience with teachers, or there's just many. Some of them were busy people. They're setting up the new businesses here. And I also wanted to mention on the trip that Parashuram Prabhu just done, as he was saying, the crisis still exists. They've seen it all. I mean, there's still bombs go off and all this happening, and there's no electricity, and the country is in really bad state. So families, they still want to leave, but they contacted me, and I'm saying there's nothing at the moment. I will obviously contact you. There's something. So if we do get some interest, then that'll be an amazing help. And it's amazing service to Krishna, because you can't get closer to Krishna if you're not serving his devotees. And that's really why I'm doing it, because I figured that out. How am I going to get to Krishna? Better start serving his devotees, and the ones that in need, obviously the priority. Yeah.
Well, Ina, it's really, I find it very encouraging to hear and feel your enthusiasm. You're very enthusiastic about your role, and it's a really important role to have, and it's great to meet someone who's very enthusiastic about it. Yes, there's a serious side to this, absolutely, but it's a real positive thing that you're doing, and I think you should definitely be applauded for that. So as I say, when
you living with me, there's a lady who arrived in April last year, so soon we're going to be celebrating 1 year, and she's great, amazing. She's helping me with childcare, she's helping me around house, she's very great devotee. We go to like festivals together, and amazing. I really found her super enthusiastic and fabulous, and she cooks amazing prasad when I don't have time, so we like sharing things. So it's super amazing. She does her own, she's like a member of family now. My daughter loves her and things like that. So yeah, my personal experience is really great. So all I can do is just promote the whole experience.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah, and someone to have around the house, and kind of great devotee association. Take prasadam together, serve the deities together.
Because
fantastic.
I have Gornitai deities, and they love her prasadam, and she cooks like her Ukrainian borscht and all this. But I spoken to her before she arrived, so around March we were talking, and she was living in her little flat she had, Poltava. It's a small town between Kharkiv and Kiev. And I was just asking, how things, and she's like, well, I sealed all the windows with the like sellotapes, just so when how do you call the waves, so they don't shatter and they don't kill me, because they're not really like, the bombs are not like dropping on our building, but there's always there's the wave from other explosions. They can shatter the windows, and they can just sort of like injure me. So I said, I sealed that with the sellotape just to keep that. And I'm thinking, is that what you have to do? She's like, yeah. Sometimes I sleep in the bathtub just in case there are just like explosions and things. And I just said that, well, I can't allow that to happen. Like, she was on her own in that flat. That's my daughter. Just a second. Yeah. My heart just went to her, and although I didn't have a very good facility to welcome someone, but I've never regretted that, having her around, and then knowing that someone stays there and has to go through this sort of thing. And but Krishna, he's there to help me to facilitate things if we want to do something. So yeah, no, Krishna is really like, if we want to do some service, he will provide opportunity, and then he will also provide the sort of I don't know, everything that we need. I mean, we never run out of anything here. Somehow things just keep happening, and if we're in financial difficulty, it just gets sorted, because I really feel Krishna is really there with us to do. If you want to serve, he will definitely accommodate.
Absolutely. I'm conscious that we've been chatting for about an hour now, and I think your daughter's keen to spend some time with you, which is great. Um, so I think we're going to maybe kind of wrap up the podcast. It's been really great to have you as the guest this week on the Hare Krishnas In Britain podcast. This is a really, really important issue, and I hope through when this podcast is broadcast that you'll have a lot of response, and we'll put your contact details out there and links to different Facebook pages as well. And it's just great to meet devotees, and great to hear your enthusiasm about this really important service that you're doing. Yeah, so I really, really appreciate that. So
someone can offer to help us to lead the Facebook page or Instagram. We don't even have Instagram for the cafe, for New Beginning Cafe, and perhaps manage maybe some bookings if there be a lot of interest or things like that would be really appreciated.
Yeah.
So we need a team, because as I said, I do it on my own, and I have a Ukrainian refugee devotee lady who cooks, and we're like a little team, but we do need some more maybe people who can help us to fundraise, people with experience, because I know Facebook, even advertisement, I'm not really able to do it for myself. I've been trying to do some things, but yeah, so definitely if people have experience and like to help us out, it would be really appreciated.
Fantastic. Okay, I think I'll just say goodbye to everyone watching or listening at home, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, which is
so
great.
It's really great expressing all this experience, and hopefully it will help some devotees understand the situation and participate with all these projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And there may be some devotees out there really want to get involved, because there's so many services that need to be done or should be done. There's always something that can happen in Krishna consciousness. So if any devotees are looking for a new challenge or a new experience, or want to get involved with a community project, this is a really important community project to serve people that are in need in not, physically, materially, spiritually. So a big thank you to Ina for being our guest on this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas In Britain podcast. She was guest number 49. We are fast approaching our 50th episode. I was only going to do about 10 episodes, and then I've done almost 50, so it's been fantastic. So thank you to everyone tuning in either on YouTube or on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please do put a positive comment. Please do share the link, and please do encourage your friends and family to watch and listen as well. And certainly when this podcast is broadcast, we'll put all the important links to the projects, really important projects that Ina's involved with or leading, and how you can support the devotee community both here in the UK and in Ukraine. So a big thank you to all those for tuning in, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.